Hello viewers, welcome to the channel. I'm Zamaswazi. In this channel, we'll be exploring the diverse aspects of human capital, covering some insightful topics, practical tips, as well as industry trends. So whether you're a people leader, navigating the world of work, or you're a curious enthusiast, you're welcome. I do hope you'll enjoy our content, subscribe, like this video so that our community can grow. Now, one of the toughest jobs is to manage people in the workplace, and in particular, to manage misconduct. Today, I'll be guiding you on how you can handle misconduct. We'll be looking at what misconduct is, the different types of misconduct, and I'll be giving you practical steps in handling misconduct. This will ensure that you've got minimal risks in the work environment and that you have a safe and welcoming environment for your employees. Now, without further ado, let's get right into it. Misconduct in the workplace refers to behavior by an employee that violates established standards of acceptable conduct. These standards are typically outlined in employment contracts, company policies, as well as relevant laws. Instances of misconduct can come to light through employers directly observing the behavior or through other employee reports. Now, addressing misconduct can pose a challenge even for the most experienced leaders. But what is important is that when you do encounter an employee that is underperforming or inappropriately behaving, that the matter gets addressed immediately and a plan of action is devised. You need to also look at the severity of the matter as well as the merits of the case. Now let's look at some of the different types of misconduct that you can be presented with in the workplace. Instances of minor misconduct can relate to things such as being consistently late, failing to inform your line manager of your absence in due time, as well as taking extended or unauthorized breaks. The more serious misconduct can be things such as theft, fraud, putting the company's name into disrepute, as well as negligence. Now, before we move on to the steps on how you can actually handle and manage misconduct, I'd like to just sit and emphasize a particular point on addressing the matter at hand. Now, for far too long as a business partner, I've witnessed leaders of people leaving matters unattended. What this ends up doing is the staff member who is guilty of this misconduct ends up thinking that this is acceptable behavior because nobody comes to them and brings it to their attention that this is actually not the way. And other staff members that are actually witnessing, other employees that are witnessing this behavior by this employee will also tend to think that this is acceptable or that there's particular favoritism towards the staff member. This then creates an inconsistent and unfair working environment. Now let's look at the steps on how you can handle misconduct. Now the first step is to then conduct a thorough investigation. You want to gather all the facts and all the evidence to ensure that you've got a solid foundation for the conversation you're going to have. Next, you want to then schedule a private meeting with the employee to discuss the matter at hand. Then, in communicating with the employee, you want to ensure that you're giving them specific examples of the misconduct at hand and then give them enough time to respond. Now, I always guide my managers and my business partners that they need to give the employee enough time to go and think about what has been presented to them, apply their minds, and come back with a written response or a written explanation of the alleged misconduct at hand. Then you want to ensure that you understand exactly what this misconduct, where it's stemming from. Is it from a lack of clear rules, or is it from lack of knowledge? Then whatever is the appropriate reason for the misconduct, you then need to offer the relevant support or training. Then you need to collaborate and plan for improvement. Now, you must remember that when you are managing misconduct and if you have to get to a point where you are issuing a warning to the employee, that this is meant to be something that rehabilitates or changes the behavior of the employee and it's not necessarily meant to punish the employee. So you need to then collaborate a plan and come up with a plan for improvement. The documentation, which is the next step, is also very, very important. I cannot stress this enough because this forms part of the fairness or procedural fairness of the misconduct. You need to keep accurate notes of the discussion that has taken place. This is particularly important because it will determine how you deal with this staff member, with this employee in future in relation to the same type of misconduct. Also, it helps others after you. Should you leave the position of a leader leading that particular individual, that particular employee, the leader after you will have the relevant notes and documentation to pick up from where you left off. Because if, as an example, you have to get to a point where you have issued or you are issuing a warning to the employee, that warning will have to stay on their file for a particular period of time. And there might come an instance where the employee commits the same type of misconduct whilst this particular warning is actually still valid and still active. So then the next line manager will be able to pick up on the notes that you would have taken to then ensure that the next steps that follow are still fair and are regarded as procedurally and substantively fair. The next step is to then follow up for review. So depending on what the reason was or what the explanation was of the staff member, was it training, was it lack of knowledge, whatever the case is, you then need to follow up and understand where are we, the plan that we had devised together, have you taken the necessary steps that we discussed. Now the last step is further disciplinary action. You need to consider disciplinary action if the behavior from the employee persists. You need to ensure that there's documentation that reflects reasonable steps that have been taken over time. Now remember, don't leave misconduct unaddressed and don't delay the conversation. You need to ensure that there's a consistent and fair application of the policies and the procedures. Now let's look at the steps that we've covered today. The first step is to conduct a thorough investigation. The second step is to address the issue. The third step is to communicate the misconduct, and then to support or provide training, collaborate for improvement, documentation, follow-up review, and the last step would be to consider taking further disciplinary action. Now, I hope you liked the session and I hope that you found it insightful. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for further updates on our content.